already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time for my departure is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Jim. I want to show you what we're going to give our graduates today. These are quilts that have been made by the ladies of our church so that they can wrap up in the love of God and the love of Northern Hills. They'll get a little marker pen to have people sign it, and they'll be over in the main lobby area of the church in the main building if you want to go by and sign a word of encouragement to our graduates. We have one who will be at this service at 9:45 and another one who will be at the 11 o'clock service, and we have a number of high school graduates who will be over in the worship center through the morning. So it's a great day to celebrate this important accomplishment. I think high school graduation is the first, to me, significant milestone of a person's life. I know there are others, 8th grade, 5th grade, we talked about with the kids, and I think that's skeptically a cap and gown company scam. You know, they want to rent more caps and gowns, and so we celebrate everything these days. But I believe, and I'm a convert to this because I'm old school, but I'm a convert to the concept of celebration. I was the guy that was like, now they celebrate a tackle on first down. I'm going, why do you celebrate a tackle on first down? You don't know if you're going to make them punt yet or not. Wait till you hold them out of the end zone, or why don't you just wait till the end of the game and celebrate at the end of the game? Or better yet, in the school I grew up in, wait till the end of the season and then see if you got anything to celebrate. So you have a little, pat the kid on the butt thing from the coach, and way to go, and yay, rah, rah. But I'm a convert now. I'm kind of like, I like to see the guys celebrate, whether it's sports or whatever. And I think graduation from high school is an occasion to celebrate. It's a significant milestone and a significant accomplishment. Not only educationally, but personally. You're 17, 18 years old now, so you're starting to mature as a human being. And I say be responsible, but have a party. Celebrate the accomplishment that you have achieved in graduation, in high school graduation. It's a time, though, to remember and think back. Yeah, I've been thinking back on my high school days, what I can remember of them this week. And you think of friendships that were formed. You think of things you did, significant accomplishments, times you got in trouble, times you got out of trouble, times you avoided getting in trouble because nobody caught you. You think of all those kinds of experiences and things you did as kids, and some of them were kind of irresponsible, but many of them were signs of maturing as a human being. And you feel good about that. And hopefully, to me, everybody's high school graduation can be an occasion to have warm memories. I know that's not always the case. We see Columbine, and we see the aftermath of Columbine now, and the tragic mark it's left on many of the survivors' lives. And that's a horrible thing, because high school ought to be something that you look back on and go, that was a great time of life. That was a great time of my formative years. I'll cherish those years forever. I love to go back to my hometown. It's not often that I do, but when I do, I just get a wash in the memories of go by the school. It's been upgraded. Go by the football field. It's changed a lot, but it's still there. And you see things that evoke memories. You see people, classmates of yours, and it's a good thing to be able to say, I graduated from Pineville High School. So you want to remember, but you don't want to live in the past. I went to the University of Kentucky out of high school, and for probably the better part of a year, I wore my high school letter jacket every day at the University of Kentucky. And I can tell you, I'm the only one who cared that I had a high school letter jacket. Nobody else cared, even was interested in well, what is that and what does that represent? That was my identity. High school was my identity. In time, the memories start to fade, but they stay there, and they get into a better perspective, because I think graduation is a time to not only celebrate your accomplishment and where you've come, where you've been and where you've come to, but where you're going. I think any significant rite of passage in life involves that question of what is next? What do I do next? Where do I go from here? And this is when I got my epiphany about this message this week. The difference between qualifying for something and being prepared for something. I recognize in thinking back on my high school days that I qualified to go to college. I had the grades, I had the test scores, I qualified. But I was not at all prepared, personally, emotionally, even academically. Even though my grades had been good in high school, I wasn't prepared in any way to go to college. I enrolled in pre-engineering, and as a prerequisite of engineering, you have to pass 110 chemistry 110. Now, if you go to, the way it was when I went to Kentucky, there was a 101 chemistry, and there's 110. You've got to pass 110. So you got to go to 101 if you haven't had high school chemistry, because that kind of gets you oriented into chemistry, and 110 is significantly harder than 101. All right? I had taken chemistry in high school. I'd taken it under the teaching of a first-year teacher who offered it during 6th period. And I spent an entire year, me and a couple other guys, giving her a hard time while not learning a single thing about chemistry. But because it was on my transcript, I had taken high school chemistry. That qualified me to bypass 101 and go straight to 110. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we had lab. Monday, Wednesday, Friday was the class. Tuesday, Thursday was lab. This is the honest truth. The first day of lab, they set our equipment out in front of us and an inventory sheet next to it to inventory our lab equipment, and I didn't know what anything was. I found this little piece of glass about that high, kind of cylindrical shaped. It was open at the top, and I looked over here and it said 5-inch test tube. I went, this could be a 5-inch test tube. Let me see. So I measured it, 5 inches, checked off 5-inch test tube. That's about as far as I could get in even inventorying my lab equipment. Needless to say, it was a tough course. But that's when I recognized, I did pass, barely. I think I made a C first semester, a D the second semester, but it was hard, and I was hopelessly behind the curve of ever catching up and knowing anything. But that's when I recognized, or should have recognized it, I don't think I recognized it until this week, that there's a difference between, it's never too late to learn something, you know. There's a difference between qualifying for something and being prepared for something. So as we reach these milestones of life, it is significant that we think in terms of not only anticipating what is next, but understanding ourselves, hopefully, to be prepared for what is next. Because all of life, to me, is a series of graduations. There are lots of significant graduations that we go through in life. High school is just one of them. There's lots of educational ones. You know, you have college, you graduate from college, you go through maybe post-grad, get a master's degree, or you get a PhD or a doctoral degree of some kind. We're always getting certifications, finishing vocational educational school, getting some kind of recognition. You go on into medicine, you get a medical degree. That's a graduation, that's an accomplishment. And you know, if you get a degree in brain surgery, you better be prepared to do brain surgery and not just qualified to do brain surgery. Law degrees, it's endless. There's all kinds of educational graduations, but think about it. There are career and work graduations as well, aren't there? You get your first job, you get a promotion, you join the service, you get a promotion in rank, you get a transfer, you move somewhere. A lot of us remember the first big move that we ever made, and that was a graduation, wasn't it? You were finishing up one thing, and you were moving on to the next thing. You were remembering, and you were anticipating at one and the same time. All of these graduations are occasion for some thoughtfulness and some prayer. In personal graduations, you graduate into marriage. You graduate into parenthood. You graduate into grandparenthood. And that's how life works. Always something is coming up that's new that the previous amount of time has kind of hopefully prepared you for and ready to embrace this new period of time. So my retirement is a graduation. I'm retiring after 43 years of ministry in local churches, and 30 of those 43 right here at Northern Hills. So I'm not just ending my career at Northern Hills, I'm ending my career period, my ordained career. And there's been a lot to think about and to try to digest as I think about going into the retired years. People have given all kinds of advice. So I went to a Sunday school party last night that was centered around my retirement. They gave me a lot of advice. Some of it was bad, some of it was good. But well, a lot of it was humorous advice, like retirement is when you go to work for your wife. Retirement is when... And so that I thought about the advice I got from Bob Gardner, a friend of mine, who said the key to retirement is get up early in the morning, go to the gym, and don't go home. Don't go home until you have to go home, and then get up early the next morning, you go to the gym, and stay away from the house. One person said, and it's, a lot have mentioned this, that in retirement, you're mindful that you're not only retiring from, but you're retiring to. You're not only retiring from something, you're retiring to something. And that's given me pause for a lot of thought about what that might look like. Where's John? I love John Faylauer's, his commentary on retirement. John said, when I retired, we talk about the bucket list. He said I had 3 buckets. The first bucket was fun and enjoyment. I wanted to have fun and enjoy life in my retirement. We're entitled to that if we worked hard and had a good career. But I also want to give back. I want to continue to offer something of myself back to the world. I can't imagine a life that's just utterly self-indulgent and just utterly whatever I want to do and trying to gratify my own desires. Hopefully we've been trained as disciples of Jesus that that's never an option for any of us, that we can ever reach a point where we have nothing to give back or we don't have to give back anymore. And then John said, I want to learn. I want to learn something. I want to just, maybe not become an expert in something, but I want to find some new endeavor, some new field. And I think that's really helped me, John, to kind of frame my thought about moving forward in retirement. A pastor told me, he said, a fellow colleague in ministry said, when you retire, you go from finding your identity and being an ordained minister you go back to finding your identity in being a disciple of Jesus Christ. So you kind of go from the professional role of ordained ministry back to a disciple. I'm going to keep asking those questions. What does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? We're lifelong followers of Jesus. What does it mean to trust Him? What does it mean to obey Him? How do I feel Jesus is leading me into these days? Because it's not like, oh, you've arrived, you're there, you don't have to worry about it anymore. It goes on. And so I'm excited for those very reasons. And I know I'm better prepared for retirement than I was for college after high school. I think I'm prepared for whatever happens next. There's a bit of question mark. I mean, I don't have it all figured out, but I look forward to the adventure of figuring it out, what that means, and where God will lead me in these days to come. You have personal retirements, graduations. I mean, there's all those decade graduations. Turn 30, say goodbye to the 20s, hello to the 30s, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and so forth, 90. I've got an uncle who just celebrated his 93rd birthday this past week, and he's doing well. So who knows where all that ends, but every decade is a significant transition. We need to be mindful of these things as we go through life, that when we reach a significant place, whether it's personal, career, or work-related, or educational, it's an opportunity to look back and reflect, give thanks. I forgot to mention baccalaureates. That's part of the celebration. When you graduate from high school especially, a lot of high schools and colleges have a baccalaureate service. That's a worship service where you go as a graduate to thank God for seeing you to this place and to be mindful of God's hand on your life and how God is leading your life. All these things play into it as we think about our various graduations. As an opportunity to celebrate, we've come to this place, and as an opportunity to move into the next season or phase of life prepared for whatever God has next for us. And that brings me back to our text for this morning, because it's a graduation text if you think about it. Paul is writing to Timothy, about what I would call the ultimate graduation. The ultimate graduation. I've mentioned this before. Does anybody know this little 2468? That's how you always remember this passage of Scripture. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses 6 through 8. 2468. 2 Timothy 4, 6 through 8. The time of my departure has come, Paul says. Now, he's not talking about retirement. He's already retired. He's talking about the end of my mortal life has come. And I'm looking at what that means. And he says to young Timothy, this young man growing up, like we would speak to high school graduates today, I've fought the good fight. I've finished the course. I've kept the faith. When Paul was younger, he was a lot more ambitious. You can see that in the Corinthian correspondence, where he says, I do whatever it takes to win people to Jesus Christ. I do whatever it takes. I meet people where they are. I accommodate myself to them, to their culture, and I do whatever it takes to win. Paul was all about winning, and he won lots of people to faith in Jesus Christ. And yet here at the end of his earthly journey, he says, I fought the good fight. He doesn't say, I won all my battles, because he didn't and nobody does. But I fought well. And that becomes a function of how we commend ourselves to God. I fought well. I finished the course. He doesn't say, I came in first place like I always wanted to come in first place, like I always wanted to win everything. He just says, I finished. I mean, isn't that significant? That where, when you're all, as a younger person, you want to win everything, achieve, accomplish, overachieve, be first in everything. Now, in the maturity of that season of his life, I fought well. I finished. That's what most marathoners want to do, right? They want to finish. They just want that medal. They have the medal that says finisher. And that's more than a participation trophy. Okay, if you've run or walked 26 miles or 13 miles, it's not, hey, here's your participation trophy. There's something significant attached to that. I've done something significant. I've trained and worked and prepared, and I finished. I got there, and I kept the faith. A lot of things challenged my faith. A lot of things tried my faith through the years, but I kept the faith, and I persevered. That's a powerful commendation. Powerful thing that wouldn't any of us want to be able to say that as we saw that we were coming to the end of life, into that ultimate graduation from this mortal life into eternity. And Paul is every bit there where I've been talking about. He's anticipating this. There's now laid up for me a crown of righteousness. I anticipate that. I'm looking forward to that. He says in Philippians, I don't know, remember that old text, I'm in a twixt between the two. I don't know if I want to stay alive on this earth or die and go to be with Jesus, for to live is Christ, to die is gain. I mean, he's looking forward. He's looking forward to eternity because he's confident in it, because he's prepared. He's confident in his relationship with the Lord. And he knows that his mortal life will come to an end, but he's not afraid of that. Because he said, these jars of clay wear out. And when they wear out, there is prepared for us an eternal home, a house in the heavens, not made with hands, but eternal in God's heaven. So I'm not worried. I know how I've lived. I'm qualified. I've received the grace of Jesus Christ, and I'm prepared. I've lived the life that I have been called to live. That to me is the kind of feeling I want to have. I hope my ultimate graduation is some years out there, and I'm like the lady whose preacher father said, I'm happy on my way to heaven, but I ain't in no hurry to get there. I think it's probably most of us. I'm happy on my way, but I ain't in no hurry to get there. But when that time comes, and it gets closer and closer every chronological year of life, then we want to be able to have that kind of confidence that we fought well, we finished the course we were called to run. We kept the faith. We have a saying, a phrase in our service of death and resurrection. We call it a service of death and resurrection because it's about recognizing the reality of death, but living in the hope of resurrection and eternal life. And underneath, it'll say a celebration of the life of so-and-so. Because there's been a graduation. Something's culminated and come to an end. Something new is beginning. And we want to celebrate the whole of that. We want to celebrate who that person was, all they gave and did, and we want to anticipate their eternal glory in heaven with God. We know they're prepared to hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." But that prayer, there's a line in one of the prayers that says, "Help us live as those who are prepared to die." And there's several to choose from, but I gravitate toward that one every time because I want to pray that phrase. Help us to live as those who are prepared to die. That's powerful, isn't it? Isn't it? Are you prepared to die? Are you living as one who is prepared to die? It's not a morbid subject. It's a subject of life and reality. I want to pray that prayer and mean it. And I can't repeat it enough. Help me to live, dear Lord, as someone who is prepared to die. There's another statement from Rick Warren, Purpose-Driven Life. I've heard Rick say this a lot. All of life is a preparation for eternity. He talks about all of life is one big test. Why did this happen to me? Why would God let this happen to me? Do not be surprised when fiery trials come upon you, Peter says. It's part of life. Life is hard. Unfair things happen to people. Harder things happen to some people than to others. And if you're one that harder things have happened to, bear up and be strong and of good courage. Seek the support of God and of the community. But don't be surprised. If you're one who's basically been able to avoid those kinds of severe, hard tests, thank God that you haven't, but be prepared for the time that they may inevitably come. Because they will come at a time that you least expect. So all of life is a preparation for eternity. Why would it be that we would get 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years of this mortal life and then it's over? God is eternal. I prayed that. He's above all time. He's before all time. If I belong to God, I belong to God's eternity. And my eternal future is secure. So help us, Lord, live as those who are prepared to die. Let us pray.